right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. Welcome back, everyone, to Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. And if it's your first time here, of course, I welcome you. Well, it's been quite a couple of weeks, hasn't it, for so many of us around the globe. I always say, wherever you may be on this little blue planet, I hope you are doing, feeling, and being well. We've been carrying on here at the show, and obviously, like so many, have been looking to adapt in our method of bringing you this show. Certainly the topics that we are discussing, where we still want to keep the focus tight on the subjects that we cover. We really want to bring in very topical ideas, of course, having to do with what we're dealing with right now with COVID-19, et cetera, and all of the sort of dimensions that play off of that, all of the facets, I should say. Well, today's guest is no exception. I'm sure if you've tuned into the show and if you're a fan of ufology, you know his name. Grant Cameron, who's been a friend as well for quite a few years now, is always a pleasure to talk to. I love speaking with Grant because, you know, honestly, I really don't have to say much. I can just let him go and go and go, and it's worth it because he's always got so much to share. And again, this show is no exception. We're going to cover sort of an interesting twist on this whole story, let's call it, from the perspective of synchronicity, including repeating numbers and other high strangeness. I'm talking about anomalies that, if you've been following the show in recent weeks, you know I've been covering this idea of what seem to be synchronicity spikes that have been happening for so many in recent weeks and months. And what I wanted to talk to Grant about is whether there may be some nexus that we can draw between these paranormal experiences, including synchronicity, intuition uptick, and what's happening right now. And believe me, we had quite the robust discussion when it comes to that. The short answer is yes, there seems to be some very, very powerful underlying connection between these anomalous sync spikes that I've been calling them for weeks and what's happening right now. But the question is, what is the significance? So this is what we're going to be talking about. Grant, again, has a lot to say. Not only are we going to be talking about the synchronicity angle, you can't have a proper Grant Cameron conversation without bringing in the beings, the UFO phenomenon, and that we did as well. I had a question for him as to whether there's any connection whatsoever with the presence of beings, the contact phenomenon, and now, rather than answer the question, I'm going to let you listen. In fact, I'm going to stop babbling and let you go ahead and tune in because it's a fabulous show. Also, very quickly, I want to remind you that I'm so delighted that we were able to finally launch our Patreon platform last week with having Daryl on the show. And as with Daryl, we had what I'm calling a private journey or after the show segment. Grant has been kind enough to also grant us a little bit of time with him after the show over on our Patreon channel. He'll be sharing some things that he hasn't shared with anyone before. That's kind of the caveat for being a guest on the after show. You got to give us a scoop. And so he has graciously obliged as well. So we do hope that you'll join us over on Patreon after the show. But in the meantime, on with the show. Here is my conversation with Grant Cameron. We'll talk to you real soon. Take care. Grant, thanks, man, for agreeing to come back on the show. It's always so much fun to talk with you and to find out what you've been digging into lately. And I know it's been a lot. Now, this talk we're about to have will be a case in point, as we're going to be delving into the strangeness of the current times that we're living in. And certainly, day by day, things are becoming more intense. But where we're going to take this particular talk is how synchronicity, repeating numbers, and other such anomalies that have literally been in people's faces lately relates to what is going on and why they may be popping up so often. I don't think these two seemingly very different experiences, that of synchronicity and that of the crisis, are unrelated at all. How about you, Grant? What do you think? And by the way, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, Alexis. Thanks for your interest in what I'm doing. And I'm actually very, very busy at the moment because I ran into you're talking about synchronicities. I ran into a whole raft of synchronicity starting January the 1st of this year. The way I look at synchronicity is almost like where you would have a situation where someone like Bashar picks up on the fact that 2020 is going to be a crazy year.
Mm-hmm.
Stay in the eye of the hurricane. Don't get caught up in what's going to be happening. And I think synchronicity is almost like a contact modality where you sort of pick up on something based upon your vibration. So you get into a vibration. So to me, it's not where everybody's going down the same synchronicity rabbit hole or rat hole or whatever you want to call it. People will always manifest, I believe, what they are vibrating. So the more and more I look at it, I'm working on a book now called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not, where I'm basically saying, if you are encountering grays, you're in fear. If you are encountering reptilians, you're a very high energy person. And that if you're encountering beings that don't have bodies, then you're dealing with high level beings, and it's related to your experience. People think that there is this sort of a world where there's us, and then there's separation. Everything is separated, and we are having things happen to us that are influencing our life. And I had a noetic experience about 3 years ago, which basically came very clear, and it said, no, that's not how it works. It is all one thing. It is all connected, and we are manifesting whatever it is happening around us. We have to take personal responsibility for the fact that we're manifesting. So when it comes to synchronicities, people will be picking up on synchronicities and whatever it is. So if you're into numerology, you're going to be sensitive to picking up things in numerology, and you're picking up something is happening. Yes. If you look at the 9/11, if you remember back to the consciousness project that they ran, where they had these random number generators all around the world, what you'll see is that this thing went off the chart, but it didn't go off the chart when 9/11 happened. It went off the chart a couple of hours before 9/11 happened. Right. So people can tap into this field, your vibration. So we think that, there's outside stuff happening there. We're separate from the outside. And no, what I would contend is that we are in the field. And when you become sensitive, whether you're Bashar, whether you're a numerologist, whether you're just sensitive one day and you pick up something, you will pick it up. But it doesn't mean that everybody's down the same rabbit hole. So people are picking up, say, in this latest virus thing, people would have picked it up before. They sensed that something was going on. There was something. My synchronicities is exactly the opposite. My synchronicities are the best thing that I've done this for 45 years. I had an encounter, and you'll eventually be hearing about this. I had an encounter with a girl who's now assisting me in doing interviews. Her name is Sinead Wellahan. And she met me last year in Toronto at a conference, and I had a couple of words with her. I don't remember her. And she tried to contact me, as many people do, and you get a lot of emails, and it kept slipping through. She sent 3 emails. I didn't respond. And then I always make an agreement with people that if I see you at a conference and I realize that you paid money to go to that conference and paid part of that money to see me go there, if I say to you at a conference, I will talk to you, I will talk to you. There's absolutely no way. I will respect the fact that people have put up money to see me lecture. So she put out the message that I talked to you in Toronto, and I realized, okay, I've got to contact this lady. So I contacted her. I went on her Facebook site. There was just something struck me. There's something unusual about her. And I went to her Facebook site, and I liked something on her Facebook site. And then she suddenly, now he's alive. I've got his attention. So we made this contact. We had the first meeting on January the 1st. And we've talked about this a lot, because we talk a lot, this girl and I. And I do not remember any of the conversations. I don't remember the first conversation. I don't remember how this thing's set up. All I remember is the emotion and the excitement and the vibration once this thing started. And we have had synchronicities almost every single day. We've had the one day where we had 3 major synchronicities in 3 hours, like off the chart, where you'd say, nope is ever going to believe that this happened. It happened 3 things and each of them was totally off the chart. And what I found is that, so we would have these synchronicities, and then she's an instructor, she's an educator in Toronto. So there's one point where I really didn't talk to her for 3 or 4 or 5 days, whatever. The energy dropped right off, and the synchronicities went to 0. And so it was in the field, and that's what we suddenly sort of agreed, that when you get a high vibration between 2 people, when you're talking and you're talking about these things, you open up this thing, almost like Bashar actually one point says, it comes to your vibration. So when you get to that vibration, the doors at that vibration will open, and it will be open to you. But you've got to get to the vibration. It's not like it's going to fall out of the sky to you. You have to meet it halfway. And so we even had one last night. We had this, I'll tell you the one last night. It was kind of a bizarre one. We were talking about Diane Pasulka's book. And we're talking about, and I knew Tyler D, the guy that's in that whole thing. I met the guy. I know who he is. I had a conversation. He told me about his download experience, about the being in the room, and how he got this invention. They put it on the space shuttle, and he made millions of dollars. And he's the main focus of American Cosmic. They're written by Diane Pasolka. We're talking about it, and as we are talking, she says, "Guess who just Facebook friended me?" Diane Pasolka.
Of course.
I'm not even friends with her. She just suddenly friended Sinead Wellahan while we were talking about her. And it's that kind of thing where you get in these conversations, the vibration goes up, and you start linking into things, which is what I say about contact modalities, is that you've got to talk to the people who are the experiencers in the phenomena, because these people are tapped in. They vibrate at a different frequency. They are sensitive, whatever you want to call it, and they can tap in. Whereas if you're talking to somebody who's, say, a left-brain scientist in a university, he may be very smart, but he's not tapped into this thing. And I believe all the materials in the field, so all the things that are going to happen, and it's like a psychic. So if a psychic says, okay, Alexis, tomorrow you're going to have a car accident, and you have a car accident, then you suddenly start to realize the world is not as random as you think it is. There are things, and people are just picking up on it. So yes, this was coming. All these events that are happening, good events, bad events are happening. And when you get sensitive to it, you pick it up, and it comes across like synchronicities. And we've had a lot of discussions. I've talked to people about, what do you think synchronicities really are? A lot of people think, well, when you're on the right path, the lines cross. Some people think it's basically your higher self. And that's where I sort of like it, where everything is your higher self. It's all just consciousness. You are the universe, you are the God, you are running this thing, and you are sending the synchronicities to yourself to awaken yourself, to make you see and get you on the right path. And that fits into UFO stuff, which is, I'm starting to get these crossovers between UFO stuff and the spiritual world. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend here, a big friend of mine here. He's a real estate guy who's pretty well off. And he had two sightings. He has a sighting where he is watching a movie, and 10 minutes before the end of the movie, he suddenly decides, I should go outside and skywatch, and I should take my laser with me. And he's never seen anything. He walks out, and this UFO goes flying by very close by his cabin, and he hits it with the laser, and then he's just like down the rabbit hole, and he can't get rid of it. And then he has a second sighting with his wife along the river. He lives in Winnipeg here along the river, and the second one flies by, and he sees an orb. His wife sees a silver thing. Years later, he finds out she actually saw a silver thing. So he goes to one of the top psychics who worked for the guy who was called the Raven, who worked remote viewing for the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And they're working on a program where she does a thing where she's psychic, where she tries to pick up what's the photograph that's going to be in the Associated Press newspaper story on Tuesday, and this is on Sunday, and she's 75% accurate in picking what the photograph's going to be for the Tuesday, and the photograph hasn't even been taken yet. So she gets in contact with my friend Mark, and he's getting readings from her. She's extremely accurate about stuff, and he says to her, so with those two UFOs I had, where were they from? What planet were they from? And she goes, what do you mean, what planet were they from? They weren't from any planet. And he said, what do you mean? There were two UFOs. I saw these two UFOs, and I hit one with the laser. She says, no, you sent them. There was nobody in them. You sent them to wake yourself up. And so that's where I see synchronicities. I see it's your frequency. You tap into it, you pick it up, and anybody like a psychic can pick up what happens tomorrow or whatever. And it comes down to the fact that it's really not a random world. All these things are happening, and when you get in the frequency, you can predict what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's where I sort of differ from a lot of people, where I say, even where I talk about this video that I think everybody's got to watch, because I ran into two people who told this story. And the video that you do is you Google search near-death experience and oneness. And this video is going to pop up with this woman. It's about a 2.5-minute video where she says, I was on the other side. I had this near-death experience. And when I was on the other side, I suddenly realized that everything was connected and everything was absolutely perfect. Everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be, and it will unfold the way it's supposed to be. And I talked to a guy in LA who had this experience, and he told me this privately. He's never told his wife. He's never told anybody. He was so shocked when this happened to him. This idea that there are no victims, there's just volunteers, that it's all this weird play that a lot of people talk about, that it's not the random world people think it is. So it's not separate. and it's not random. We believe this world where it's all separate. We're biological robots in a random, meaningless universe, and we're fighting up against all these forces against us. And when you start looking at the esoteric literature and the UFO literature, you start to realize this whole idea that no, the world is not really random.
No,
It's
of course
almost
not.
like
I mean,
going along a pattern.
we're talking about perennial wisdom, and there have just been so many expressions of that, Grant. I appreciate that. I'm gonna chime in here because I think a lot of the people that are listening to this show are of that ilk. I can't speak for all of them, but this idea that the universe, the cliche as it may be, acts on purpose is well known. So sure, and I do think that there are individuals, for whatever reason, are more dialed into that purposeful pattern that the universe has, universe and us working in tandem. I know what you're saying in terms of all is one and all are one, but I still like to look, I know it's sort of paradoxical because I tend to look at the individual and the collective as separate but connected. I always refer, let me just say this, I always refer back to David Bohm's phrase where he says, we are like whirlpools in a stream. We have identity. We just don't have distinct borders. But in that borderless world, everything is connected. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. The way I see that we sort of get off the track and we sort of use it to negative purposes is that I have a friend who's a producer in Toronto who actually optioned one of my books for a movie, and she does a lot of stuff where she's interacting with mediums and trying to get this kind of stuff and UFO stuff and optioning stuff. And she, at one point, she's with a very high level psychic, and she said, "I've got Jesus here," and she said, "You got Jesus here?" And she says, "Yeah, he's here, and he's laughing at you." And she said, "What do you mean he's laughing at me?" She says, Jesus says you think you're him. And she says, "I don't think I'm Jesus. Like, why would he say something like that?" And he says, "Yeah, because you're up on the cross. You've taken over the cross. You're up on the cross. Get off the cross. We need the world needs the wood." And it was this idea that what we do when we have the thing of identity is we start getting up on the cross and we start getting into woe is me and the world is against me and this kind of stuff. And we don't realize the fact that we are sort of manifesting what we're doing. And that if you get into this sort of dump that, the Chinese are out to get us or whatever, there's like a million things. Or, even the thing with this, this thing with the toilet paper where people are fighting over toilet paper.
Why do you think people, what's going on? Let's digress for a minute because I want your weigh in. Where did this toilet paper thing start, do you think, for you?
It comes to this fear. It comes to this idea, this I call it scientific religious
But of all things, why toilet paper? Why not a food product? This is where it started.
It's the whole thing. We're under attack. This is it. This is the, get the guns and you got to have enough food and we need the toilet paper because we're going to be sealed off for 14 days and we got to hunker down. We're under attack. This virus is going to get us and this is the ultimate thing and you got to be prepared. And so people go for the toilet paper, but it's out of fear. And they even had the weird thing yesterday. It's gotten even worse than the toilet paper. It's actually got where a friend of mine received a message about one of there's these kind of weird stories about people in the story. And what the story was, this woman's in whatever big store she's in, and all these people are running around with this toilet paper, and everybody's running for the toilet paper aisle. She gets to the toilet paper aisle, and there's nobody, but there's a bunch of people standing in line. And she says, "Were you standing? And are you waiting for toilet paper?" And they said, "Yeah, we're waiting for toilet paper." And she says, "Okay, I'm going to stand in the line." So she stands in this line, and then the guy comes out with the pallet of toilet paper, and people almost like they're all like little soldiers, and they march up like, these refugees that are getting a bag of grain and they're given one thing of toilet paper, and they're all happy, and they go wandering off, and it's like, oh man, they're happy as can be because they've got their toilet paper, and they sort of march off. And so I took that story and I posted it on my Facebook site, and then I put the thing about the oneness, about the fact that we've gone into fear, and once you realize that you think that you're separate, and it's like a Darwinist thing, like a scientific religious superstition that we are random biological robots in a meaningless universe. It's survival of the fittest, and we're going to have to survive, and the universe is coming after us, the world's coming after us, we're by ourselves. And then what happened was she got angry because I posted her story. And it was like, not only are people angry about you're grabbing my toilet paper, but you're grabbing my toilet paper story. And I thought, this is just like, it's gone totally crazy,
Yeah.
where people are in this real fear mode. It's me versus the world. And you have to realize, no, it's you planned this. You are part of this. Nothing is really happening random when you get down to hearing people like Bashar and some of the channelers, where they're saying, the one is the all are the one,
Right.
or the tall gray, and the tall gray says we are one with the one who is all. And but we've always fall back into the illusion that we are in separation.
But here's the thing here's the thing I want to interject, Grant. The interesting thing about the way the universe, I call it that, operates, is that if we, and I say we, present company may be excluded, many people excluded, but let's say the masses are acting as if they're the victim, and so they're operating in a mode of fear, guess what universe will give back? The exact mirror of that. And so this is where it gets a little dicey, because we're talking about this, we're all connected. We created this scenario that we're in, and maybe all others. And I'm not saying that's the case or not, but this is a postulate. Okay, I'm gonna stay neutral there. But if whatever mode we think we are acting in, or the mode that we're playing out, is exactly what the universe is going to give us back. So we're going to have the effects that necessitate fear and panic. Until...
And we produce the negative emotions, sure. That's the thing.
Yes.
Like, I believe you create
so it becomes
grace,
a perpetuating...
and it's the idea where the higher self, if you believe in a devil, your higher self is going to show up as the devil, because you're not going to believe anything else. So you're going to, and that's what people have to realize, is that you are helping to manifest and to make this worse by having this kind of attitude that we're bringing it on. And that may be part of the plan, but it's like, I have one of my assistants, her name is Desta Barnaby, actually had a new book come out. She channels, and she put this book out, and she had a download experience when she first met me. Again, it's this synchronicity thing. When I first met her, the first morning that we met in a mall here, she had this major download that happened that morning. And the download she had is how the universe begins. And it begins where she's there and there's nothing there. It's unconditional love. It's sort of like not dark and not light, and it's all warm and it's beautiful or whatever. And then it's like millions of years and nothing's taking place or whatever. And then all of a sudden there's a black cube appears. And she's going, what is that? And she hears this voice. It says, this is how all wars start. And that's this thing, this idea of separation, that once we believe we're separate, then it's me versus you. I'm the good guy. You're the bad guy.
That reality plays out. That reality will then play out. Yeah.
And it's probably planned that that's the way it is. And the only way to get out of it, like people say, well, okay, and what I say, like in terms of fear or especially evil, I say all that we consider to be evil is simply the mistaken belief in separation. Then so you say, well, how do you get rid of the evil? Well, you have to change the belief in separation. If you suddenly believe that everything is one, that almost like your family, like a little socialist unit, where my kid, I'm going to protect my kid, I'm going to give him free health care, I'm going to give him free education, I'm going to do the best I can for my family because I want my family to succeed, and the family prospers because everybody's working together. But as soon as you get somebody outside the family, say, well, that's like there's thousands of Chinese died from the virus. Well, it's just Chinese, there's billions of them, we don't really care. And we have that separation thing where we don't associate and we don't empathize with people outside ourselves. We turned it in, and the more we turned it inside and make it about us, the more things fall apart. Because that's what I say, anything that is evil in the modern world is created by the mistaken belief in separation. If you believe that we are the aliens are us, that everybody is a part of us, that we are all one, how can you steal stuff? How can you destroy people if you realize this is you, and you're looking into the person's eyes, whatever race they are, whatever problems they've got in the world, when you look in their eyes, you're looking in your own eyes, and when they look in your eyes, they're looking in their own eyes. And that's what we have to realize, is that it is absolutely, as Bashar says, it is like one of the 5 laws of the universe. The one is the all, and the all are the one. And until you get that, you're going to do this separation thing, and right. Separation is going to cause fear, and people are going to panic. And it's like a survival of the fittest. It's a Darwinist thing. It's this superstition that we're in this fight against the universe. And if I'm smart enough to chop the last tree down and smart enough to get the last fish out of the sea or pollute the last river, too bad, so sad. That's the way it works. We are told these are just objects. They don't connect to anything. And we have to realize that whatever we do, we do to the world, we do to the universe, and that's why the beings are here.
Right.
They're
Well,
they're
let's talk.
here. They
Hold on a second now. You're running away. I know you got so much going now more than ever. I know Grant Cameron has got so many thoughts going on in his mind, but we got to give it a little break here. I want to insert. We only have about 10 minutes left, by the way. Speaking of the beings, let me take this as a segue. Let's assume that at least on this level, there are different identities, the non-human intelligence being one of them. What role do you think they may be having, if at all, in what we are experiencing right now?
My impression, and this is just in the last couple of years, I've made the shift since I had these noetic experiences. I say I have a theory called the theory of wow, where I say the beings will appear. The theory of wow. They just want you to go wow. Whether they're mutilating a cow to send you a signal that is downwind from nuclear power activities, or whether there's a UFO. Why do UFOs have lights on them? Because they want you to go, wow, what the heck is that? I mean, they don't need lights. We don't have lights on our craft, so why would you put lights on it? Why would you appear? You showed me this video. There's 44 objects flying along. Like, why would you need 44 objects to fly along through the sky? I mean, what's that all about? And they want you to go, what the heck is that?
Why would they though? But why would they? What I mean, we're talking about we're talking about possibly whatever this is. Let's assume it's not of this planet, that they are more advanced in some capacity than we are. Why would they want us to go? Why would they even give a damn?
Well, because I say that they understand oneness. I say we're not going to get off the planet until we understand oneness, because the oneness thing says it's all one. There is no time. There is no space. There is no physical universe. This is all illusion. And they are moving from one point to another in space, because it's like when they asked Ben Rich, the head of Lockheed Skunk Works, Jan Hartson says to him, how do they get here? How does it work? I'm interested in the propulsion system. And he says, what do you know about ESP? And Jan Hartson says, it means everything in time and space is connected. That's how it works. Ben Rich said, that's how it works. There is no time. There is no space. They are moving in, and they understand the oneness thing. So unless you understand it's all one thing and that you can move around in this thing, you're not going to get it. And because they understand the oneness principle, they understand it's all connected, that we are all connected. And they're trying to get our attention. They're trying to tell us you're in an illusion. This is not how it works, but they can't come down. The way we do it is we go to another country with our military and we take over and we say, okay, now we're going to bring you, Jesus, McDonald's, and all this kind of stuff. And people point the gun and say, get the heck out of here. They realize you can't go in and force people to believe. So they're using the indirect method where they're going, because you know what it's like. Once something happens to you, once you get a synchronicity, once you get a UFO sighting, you're down the rabbit hole, and it doesn't matter what anybody says, like, what is going on here? And you can't leave it alone. And you start thinking about it. And that's what they're trying to do. It's like Bashar. When Bashar was asked about the Nimitz thing. So the Nimitz is there. This UFO hovers for a week. It's sitting in one spot for a week until they finally go chase it with the F-18s. And so they asked Bashar, what's that all about? And Bashar says, well, they're just raising consciousness. They're just sitting there and saying, here we are. Come chase us, come chase, quit. And that's like when they do the military thing, when they go inside the nuclear weapons storage areas to turn off, they're sending a message. And when they're there, why did they put the lights on? So they come inside that nuclear weapons storage area and they shut down the nuclear missile. It's almost like I can almost see them. They're going, Zogar, they can't see us. Turn the lights brighter. They can't see us. And that's what it's all about. It's like, why do you lay down crop circles that sort of, you can't figure it out, but everybody's going, what is this all about? And they do it. And I started to believe. That's all they're doing. They're doing the theory of wow. They're getting people's attention. They're making you think. And when you start to think, then you sort of think you figure it out yourself and you come to the conclusion. It's not that somebody came in with a gun to your head and said, okay, we're going to teach you this. You suddenly get the idea, and they're shifting consciousness by doing these weird things.
Are they though? Are they really? Absolutely. Are they making a dent, you think? I happen to think that they are, but certainly there are many, 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 many people that will continue to be 100% oblivious. So are their efforts in vain? Yeah. Are their efforts in vain?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I can tell you, I've been in this for 45 years, and I can tell you absolutely that in 1975, and people don't realize this. They always think that the UFO world is a world that what happened now happened then. I'm doing a lot of interviews now with these people who speak light languages. Yes. Nobody spoke in 10 years. I don't care what anybody says. And then I went to reptilians. So I've got a girl, we published her book on reptilians. So I went back and I talked to one of the experts on reptilians. When's the first reptilian experience? He goes, 1988. And it's like, so where were they before then? The first grays did not appear till 1961. And what you see is this thing where they're coming in, they're doing all this kind of stuff, and that in 1975, and I can guarantee you this, now we know if you're an experiencer, the people are getting taken all the time. They're going on the ship. They've been on there 30 times or whatever. In 1975, it was considered to be a random experience. If you had one UFO sighting, 11% of people see a UFO. Okay, that's fine. You probably misinterpreted it as something else, whatever. But you would never, ever in 1975 say, I had 2 UFO experiences, because it's a random experience. Like, how could you possibly see 2 of these things? And so you were absolutely, totally ignored if you said. Now we know it's not random. Now we know that if you have had the experience, you're a lifer, and you're probably getting messages, yes, and you're probably getting all this kind of stuff. And so the whole idea of what's happened in the UFO community has changed dramatically in the 45 years that I have. Like, what happened in 75 does not happen anymore. In 75 they had, for example, they had the ground, what are called ground traces. And Ted Phillips, who invented that term, just died a couple of days ago. So Ted Phillips, they had these things where the UFO would land and it would put the pod marks in the ground, and then it would burn the crop and it'd go on. That has not happened for 20 years. It used to happen all the time. Crop circles didn't start till 1982. Cattle mutilations did not start till 1967. And it's almost like they do this, then they stop that, then they do this, or angel hair. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were dropping angel hair, the spider type stuff, all over trees as the UFO was flying over. Mm-hmm. Like, why would that doesn't happen anymore? Or the metals. So people get the metals. Oh, we got these metal materials. We're going to figure out how to build a flying saucer. No, they've been dropping this stuff since 1947. The first sighting ever before Kenneth Arnold was the Maury Island sighting 3 days before, where the UFO is, oh, it's going to crash. Oh, and it's flying around the sky, and it just rains down this material, and everybody grabs this material and they hoard it away, and people start wondering, what is this material? They've been dropping this material endlessly. This has got nothing to do with UFOs. They don't come across the galaxy and then suddenly have little 1-inch pieces falling off the flying saucer. I believe they're doing this on purpose. And I'll give you one last example.
Okay.
If you listen to the story by Jim Penniston tells the story. He touches the craft.
Yes, I'm familiar with it. Rendlesham Forest, for everybody that's not familiar.
The thing is hovering a couple of feet off the ground, and he goes, and it's got this light coming out from the bottom of the craft. So he pushes it, and it doesn't move, and he looks under it, and there's the pod marks, but there was no landing gear. So it did not have landing gear. So they leave the pod marks, even though it didn't have landing gear. And that's the whole thing. Like, why are they leaving the pod marks? Why are they leaving it? Because they want you to go, wow, what the heck is this? And the weirder, the better. That's when I was talking to you about this thing where in the UFO world, you have people who reportedly all the time. I have one guy here, and he said at least twice he woke up with his shirt inside out and backwards. Mm-hmm. And it had this stain, and he sent it to Kathy Martin, and they did an analysis on this thing, and he's had really bizarre experiences. So he sends it, and if you look at physical mediumship, but first the UFOs. So they say, oh, the UFOs are stupid guys. They can't even put the clothes on right. They're just stupid. They make these mistakes or whatever. And the guy's shirt's on backwards and inside out. And then you see physical mediumship. And there's one by the name of David Thompson. And they tie him down with tie straps, and he has a cardigan sweater on, and they tie strap that cardigan sweater on the buttons and everything, so you cannot undo the thing. And they find him after the seance. He's out, and he's got the shirt, the sweater on backwards, and all the tie straps are still attached. And so you see the it's almost like the phenomena, the ghosts or the beings or whatever are doing the same thing. It's like, whoa, watch what we're going to do tonight. Just whoa. And people are going, wow, this is unbelievable. And that's, I think, all they're doing is they're raising it. So when it comes along till 2017 in December, then we used to have this thing. I had an article called The 64 Reasons the Government Decided Not to Tell You the Truth. And one of them was the stock market's going to melt down, people are going to jump off buildings, and then it goes in the New York Times and says, oh, by the way, the U.S. government is actually investigating UFOs. And everybody goes, yeah, I knew that already. A big deal. Big deal. And now they're going to go to the alien thing. But nobody jumped off a building. Absolutely nothing happened when the New York Times came out and said it is real.
That's right. No, you're right. Absolutely. Yeah. The response was not as massive as we thought it might be. That's very good. So listen, we're gonna wind this down, but I want you to boil this down. If Grant Cameron, if you can do this, I will personally deliver 20 Canadian dollars to you in two sentences. I'm not kidding, because we really got to wind it down.
Yep.
How
Yeah.
would you connect? You just made a lot of points that seem completely disconnected. And we know as we're connected, so are the things that you talked about and the way that you talked about them. We're talking about the crisis of today, the UFOs, the synchronicity, the philosophy of perennial wisdom of we are all one. What message would you leave our audience with in 2 sentences or less? Seriously.
It's
I can't believe. I can't hear you. I lost you. I lost you. This is now you want okay, stop, Grant. We're not hearing you. This is a synchronicity. You've muted yourself somehow. Now, hold on. This is a synchronicity, guys. Do you see what just happened here? Do you see his mouth moving? I cannot hear him. And after I said, can you say this in 2 sentences or less? The moment he was about to do it, he muted. Let's see if he comes back. Okay. We're going to have to take a quick break. You would think it's Mercury retrograde the way things are going today. We're going to have to take a quick break because Grant is going to have to reboot and call me back. So we'll be right back with you guys. Hold on tight. If you're enjoying this episode and want to get more conversations about all things intriguing, inspiring, and unusual, be sure to subscribe to Higher Journeys on YouTube. And once you do, don't forget to hit that notification bell to receive an announcement as soon as a new episode is posted. And now, back to our show. All right, folks, we're back, and I'm back. Now you can see me front and center here alongside Grant. I don't know what just happened, Grant, but I would say that this is emblematic of the very thing that we were talking about. The moment I asked you if you could sum up in 2 sentences or less all of the components that we discussed in this show, you went mute. Now, it does not matter technically what happened. The point is that it happened. Does this, I think, in the silence, you proved your point. So in all that you said, right? Right, Journeyers? Is that right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have you say just a final word, and then I want to make an announcement for folks about what we're going to do next. So I'll give you a couple words, just a couple. Go for it.
okay.
And you know I love you, by the way. You know I love you, right? I love you, man.
What I would say to sum it all up is there is no physical world, there is no time, there is no space. It's all a big play. You're running your play. I'm running my play next door on my set. When you leave the world, they ask you one question: how did it work out? Because I put all the players in. I did the whole thing. I promised to do certain things. And basically, it comes down to what did I agree to come into the world to do? And am I doing it? And what happens outside of me is totally irrelevant. It only matters because when you die, you can't say, my mother-in-law did this, Hillary Clinton did this, my dog ate the homework. They're not. It's basically a game where I am the center of the universe, and I came to do something, and that's all I really have to worry about. Beautifully said. And I need to cough. Excuse me. And no, I'm not sick, by the way. Thank you, Grant. That was perfect. Thank always, you. As always, much to ponder. People have the benefit of listening. They'll have time to stay at home and listen over and over and over again. But guess what, guys? We're not done because Grant has agreed to come into my little closed door session that we're about to have. By now, you all know that we have launched a Patreon platform, our Patreon channel. Not channel, a platform, I think is probably more appropriate to say. But nonetheless, it is chocked full of great stuff, including what I'm calling the private journey. We're going to have a closed door session after this show is over. Grant is going to be letting us in on some things that he has not shared with anyone ever before. That's the contingency for the folks that want to come into the closed door session. It's got to be exclusive. And so he has promised me, right, Grant? So for those of you that have not joined our brand new Patreon, but it's available and it's ready, and it's simply patreon.com/higher journeys. Head on over there as soon as you hear this. And not only we're going to have Grant talking with us, we've got so much great stuff that you can go check out on our brand new Patreon. So let's get to it, Grant, shall we? We're going to sign off on this particular broadcast, and here we go into the after the show session. So I'm going to say thank you as always, and I do love you, man. And you stay safe. You stay safe and you stay vigilant, as I know you will.
and to you as well, journeyers. We love you. Stay safe, stay powerful, and understand that in some mysterious but very, very powerful way, we are all connected and we are all one. So as one, let's win this together, shall we?
And I've seen the last chapter of the book. We win, so don't worry about it.
There you go. That's the final word. We'll talk to you real soon. Take care, guys. Bye bye.